And that brings me to what is happening now in Israel. There is something that's happening in Gaza that's not getting enough attention. And it's just what we predicted, right? We predicted that the goal of Israel was to make sure that they kill as many Palestinians in Gaza as possible. And for those that remain, they will never be allowed the right to return, at least to northern Gaza. And we're seeing this story come through now as well. Palestinians will not be allowed to return to homes in northern Gaza. Isn't this what we predicted, ladies and gentlemen? This is what we said would come into light. Israeli ground forces are getting closer to the complete evacuation of northern Gaza, and residents will not be allowed to return home. The IDF has said, in what appears to be the first official acknowledgement from Israel, it is systematically removing Palestinians from the area. Let's highlight this here. Where's the outcry? Where's the outcry from those that are pro-Palestine that said support Kamala? Why aren't they saying anything about this? This is Israel publicly acknowledging that they will not allow Palestinians to return to northern Gaza. By the way, this is from The Guardian. The Guardian's a liberal. So even they're letting you know. So what is going to happen is what I predicted, that they will rebuild. But when they rebuild, they will not allow Palestinians to enjoy what they have rebuilt. And we're seeing this come into light. Listen to this. In a media briefing on Tuesday night, the IDF Brig Gen Itzik Cohen told Israeli reporters that since troops had been forced to enter some areas twice, such as Jabalia camp, there is no intention of allowing the residents of northern Gaza Strip to return to their homes. He added that the humanitarian aid would be allowed to regularly enter the south of the territory, but not the north, since there are no more civilians left. International humanitarian law experts have said that such actions would amount to war crimes, a forcible transfer, and the use of food as a weapon. So does everybody understand what happens here when they're talking about food as a weapon, right? So if they're telling you that humanitarian aid would be allowed to enter the South Territory, but not the North Territory, obviously, if you are starving and you want food, you're going to have to make sure that you have migrated to northern Gaza. You can't stay in North Gaza if you want to eat. And I even question if they're going to bring that in. I question. It goes on to say on Thursday, an IDF spokesperson said that Briggs' comments had been taken out of context. Of course they have, right? During the discussion about Jabalia, and did not reflect the IDF's objectives and values. The spokesperson also said that the briefing had been on background and the brigadier general should not have been quoted in Hebrew media reports that emerged. So we've seen this before, right? It's always an IDF soldier said one thing, and then when it gets out to the public, it's, oh, no, they didn't really say that, or no, that doesn't represent the view of how all of us feel. Bullshit. He's saying it out in the open. Occupation, oppression, annihilation. This was always the plan. The Israeli army and government have repeatedly denied trying to force the remaining population of northern Gaza to flee the relative safety of the south during a month-long renewed offensive and tightened siege. Residents still clinging on in the north have said the new operation has created the worst conditions of the war to date. Israel said the push is necessary to combat regrouped Hamas cells. So you see, they're going to continue saying these things. Like, we have to do this because of Hamas. You know, they have been fighting for over a year. And they haven't taken out Hamas because that's not the goal. The goal is to exterminate the Palestinian people. And whoever is left, they will be pushed out. Now, some of you may be wondering, where are they going to go? And that's a big question because Israel, Egypt actually has been very public about saying that they don't have the resources to let them come into Egypt. Now, look, we can argue whether or not we believe they're being 100% honest about that. But when Nico House was in Egypt a couple of months ago, he said there were a lot of refugees in Egypt. There were Syrian refugees in Egypt. There were Palestinian refugees in Egypt. So the question becomes again, guys, where are they going to go? That question hasn't been answered, right? It goes on to say here that rights groups and aid agencies have alleged that despite the denials, Israel appears to be carrying out a version of the so-called general's plan, which proposes giving civilians a deadline to leave and then treating anyone who remains as a combatant. This is very important. The general's plan here, that if you don't leave by that deadline, they will see you as a target. It is unclear how many people remain in northern Gaza. Last month, the UN estimated there were about 400,000 civilians unable or unwilling to follow Israeli evacuation orders. On Wednesday, social media footage showed waves of several dozen displaced people carrying children and rucksacks and walking south through flattened areas of Gaza City. I want to be clear about something too when it comes to evacuation. Not everyone can quickly evacuate. I'm thinking about people that are disabled, physically disabled, the elderly, and I'm also thinking about people that have been injured. How are these people going to evacuate quickly, right? Let's say you're in a wheelchair and your wheelchair has been destroyed because of the bombs. How are you going to evacuate quickly? So these are things I want people to keep in mind. And I'm thinking about all the children that are now orphans in Gaza. Who is helping them? Who is taking care of them? What are these kids supposed to do? Kids that have lost both parents, parents that have lost all their children. Yeah, that's a good point there, Brain Power. Where are the kids supposed to go? I have no idea. So I don't understand where they are supposed to go. Miranda, exactly, Sabby. Also pregnant women and families with young children. Exactly. Not everyone can evacuate quickly. It is unclear how many people remain, etc. It goes on to say there were estimated to be about 400,000 civilians unable or unwilling to follow Israeli evacuation orders. On Wednesday, social media footage showed the waves of people displaced. It goes on to say many had not eaten in days. Now, the body can only go so long without water. I have to look up those numbers. I believe you can only go, 3 or 4 days without water? I have to double check that. Eric, if you can double check that for me, someone. So it's one thing to not have food and it's another thing to not have water, because oftentimes you can die from dehydration. So keep that in mind. Hotspot said 7 to 8 days. Yeah. So keep this in mind when they say people haven't had food, they haven't had water. It says, we came barefoot. We have no sandals, no clothes, nothing. We have no money. There is no food or drink. I can imagine, just imagine if you were stranded like that. Okay, Eric told me 3 days without water can kill you. Okay, see, there we go. At least 15 people were killed in an Israeli airstrike on the northern town of Beit Lahia on Wednesday. That's coming from Al Jazeera. But communication difficulties meant there was no official account of the strike from Gaza Health Ministry. This is just crazy. It says the director says that the hospital, Kamal Adwan Hospital, it says they posted a video of patients fleeing from the top floors of the building as it was hit by artillery fire. So what Israel has done to Gaza, like this, and you know, also the West Bank, look at these people. Don't turn away. Look at these. Look at this. You have a kid here with a bike, and I believe this is probably what is left of their belongings on the bike. These are people, you know, evacuating, fleeing. There's bags here. There's kids. We don't know if these are their parents or not, but they are not. They don't want them to have the right to return to northern Gaza. These are the people who are able to walk. These are the people who physically are able to leave, and not everyone is. And I want people to take that into consideration. On top of that, Joe Biden is doubling down on this. The number of times that we have heard that they are working tirelessly for a ceasefire, which I've always kept saying, that's BS, working tirelessly for a ceasefire. You will see that now that has also been a lie. I told you they were lying, but now they're being public about it. Listen to what they said recently on Face the Nation.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said he spoke to Donald Trump 3 times in the past few days. The Israeli president, Isaac Herzog's coming to the White House. That was just announced. What makes you think in these final days of the Biden administration that Benjamin Netanyahu would agree to peace in Gaza or agree to peace in Lebanon and not hold on to that political capital for the new president?
Prime Minister Netanyahu will make his decisions and he'll speak to his decisions. Here's what I see. First, in Gaza, it really today is not Israel that is standing in the way of a ceasefire and hostage deal. It is Hamas. Israel has said it's prepared to do a temporary ceasefire for a number of hostages and then try to build on that to get all of the hostages home.
Do you know what Mr.
Hamas has said
was
no.
talking about on that with Hamas?
Let me go ahead and correct him here. The lies, the lies, the lies. Hamas agreed to a ceasefire multiple times, and it was Benjamin Netanyahu who said he would not accept it.
I don't know about the particular statement he made. What I will tell you is whatever Hamas is saying publicly, what they are communicating to the mediators is no, we will not do a ceasefire and hostage deal at this time. So what we need to do is get the rest of the world to continue to increase pressure on Hamas to come to the table to do a deal in Gaza, because the Israeli government has said it's prepared to take a temporary step in that direction. And then when it comes to Lebanon, we have been actively engaged in discussions with the Israeli government. Those should remain behind closed doors. But we do believe that at some point, the Israeli government wants to do a deal that gets its citizens back home. I don't think it's doing that deal for American politics. I think it's doing that deal to try to secure Israel. And I expect that in the coming weeks, we will see progress in that direction.
So these people have been lying to you guys. I'm just trying to, I just, nothing irks my soul more than this, right? So shout out to Dropsite News. They said the U.S. is making it clear it does not support a permanent halt to the violence in Gaza. See this? This is National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. What does he say? No, we will not do a ceasefire and hostage deal at this point. So they were never working tirelessly around the clock for a ceasefire. Stop saying that. That was not a thing. Kamala was lying to you. Biden was lying to you. That was never a thing. I agree. On Shawnee TV, this is so shameful. I 100% agree with you. It's disgusting. Was not a thing. All along, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, all of them agreed with what Israel was doing. They just said enough to the public to make you think that there was some type of passion or concern for the civilians that were killed. That was just to calm you down and to get you to vote for them again. But now that Kamala Harris has already lost, now they're just outright letting you know they don't give a shit. It's insane that our government continues to fund this. And I don't understand how anybody can defend what Israel is doing to Gaza. I don't understand it at all. especially if you're not in the pocket of AIPAC, if you're not in the pocket of the Israeli lobby. If you can't see those images for yourself, the kids alone, and that does not bother you, you need to ask yourself why. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.